ladies, what's up? It's Brittany and Marciea here with the Coffee with MP show in our new studio. And today we are going to talk to you guys about the top 10 exercises to target those inner thighs.
So the big question is this: how were two women who didn't cheat and purchase a gym franchise model, how were they able to spread their mission and purpose by empowering and transforming hundreds of women's lives through fitness, nutrition, mindset, and accountability with a micro gym business model of women only? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. We are LadyStrong Fitness. Welcome to the Coffee with MP show.
Hey ladies, what's up? Like I said, it's Brittany and Marciea here in our new podcast studio, and we are so excited to bring you some fun, exciting topics this year on the podcast. And today, to start things off, we're going to talk about inner thighs.
Yeah, first and foremost, let's actually talk about how we came about these topics.
Yes, let's talk about that.
So, for quite some time, for almost a year now, we've kind of been deciding for our members.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was smart that we took the initiative to be able to allow them to decide what topics we should discuss based on the questions that they have. So we actually placed out I would say kind of like a survey after each class, and kind of got some really good topics the ladies had jotted down that we wanted to talk about.
Yeah. So this was one of the ones on the list, and it's kind of an exciting one.
It is.
I think it's going to be really interesting for a lot of you guys to understand and hear, like, some of the exercises you're going to hear. You're going to be like, no, that doesn't target inner thighs. There's no way. But in actuality, it does. So let's kick things off. Do you want to start things off with exercise number one?
Before we go to exercise number one, I'm going to explain why it's exercise number one.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a lot of ladies have a tendency to have a misconception that you have to do these really outrageous exercises in order to get the results that they're looking for. And let me kind of explain a little bit more in depth what I mean by that. You're scrolling through your Facebook newsfeed or YouTube or Instagram, and you see this video that went viral. And a lot of ladies think that they have to do that actual exercise in order to get the same effect, if not result, as that person that's doing it. Sometimes you might see like top 10 ways to do this or to do that. Not to discredit what we have here, but it all starts, where I'm getting at, guys, is that it all starts with the fundamentals. You don't have to do, really sexy looking, appealing, aesthetically appealing exercise to get what you're looking for.
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing is that less is always more when it comes to fitness.
I agree.
You don't necessarily need, some of the hardest workouts that we've ever done at MP, including the one that we did last week, was all body weight.
Oh, yeah.
So it's always less is more. You don't need the latest and greatest equipment that there is out there to target certain muscle groups. And at the end of the day, I always tell everybody that nutrition always comes first when it comes to, you can't spot reduce fat. So that's another thing with that too. So let's get started with
let's do it.
Exercises.
Yes. So with that being said, I'm just going to kick things off with one of my favorites and fundamentals is a sumo squat, also known as some ladies may call it a plie squat.
Yeah. So I think with the sumo squat, we're going to count that as almost 3 different exercises.
Most
because
definitely.
there's 3 different variations of that. You want to go through the variations of that?
Sure. So with the plie squat, there's one variation I would like to do, and I just want you guys to envision for a minute here. For those of you that don't have an understanding or grasp understanding of what a sumo or plie squat is, you're going to make sure that your stance is wider than normal. You got those toes pointed out, and you want to make sure that, in this case, you want to make sure the weight is always loaded in your heels, right? And by doing so, I always say the smallest thing makes the biggest impact. And by just having the weight loaded in your heels will put a lot more emphasis on those inner thighs, glutes, and hamstrings. I think that with the plie, you can do body weight, and you can also apply some sort of weighted equipment to it, like a dumbbell and or kettlebell.
And then also the isometric piece of that one too. Right?
Yes. Very good. Thanks for that, by the way. So the isometric piece, and for those of you that maybe don't know isometric, you can do an actual static hold. It could be, in this case, even like a wall sit. So holding that, I believe, almost does more damage than doing the concentrics and eccentrics moving, which is the up and down motion or movement, getting those repetitions in. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that it's sumo squats are probably one of the best ways to target inner thighs, just because when you turn your toes out, naturally you're targeting more of your inner thighs than your quads. So the second you start turning your toes out away from the center and widening your stance, you're automatically loading your inner thighs.
Most
and
definitely.
that's really where the target is at. A lot of the other exercises that we're going to talk about target other areas other than the inner thighs, but this one is like majority inner
For
thighs.
sure, most definitely.
Yeah.
And when I think back to a lot of the exercises that we've done in the studio, I would say that we probably do that, I would say, on a daily, if not a definitely weekly basis. So some ladies might, just to kind of refresh your memory, ladies, if you're thinking, well, what have we done? We've done deficits on the plyometric boxes. We've done sumo deadlift high pulls. I don't know if you want to add to that some of those that we've done, but just to kind of give you ladies some insight on exactly, so that way when we are going through the motion, you have a better understanding as to exactly what it is that
Yeah,
we're
and I think
doing.
what to remember, we're talking to people other than just our members.
That's true, too.
So, if you're doing the gym thing on your own, you can always look up what a sumo squat is or
Sure.
what a static sumo squat is as well, so that you're adding those into your routine if it is something that you're wanting to do on your own as well.
Good
So,
call.
next exercise.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay.
You're up next.
So the next one we're going to talk about is a couple different variations of the lunge. So obviously regular alternating lunges are good for inner thighs, but lateral lunges are also very good for inner and outer thighs. So we're going to cut that as two. So lateral lunges and regular lunges also target both areas. You can do those weighted or non-weighted. Either one is fine, but both of those are also going to target the inner thighs as well as a few different areas of the legs, right? Your quads and your outer thighs as well. But your lateral lunges are really going to hit those inner thighs as well.
Sure. When you say regular lunges, keep in mind you can go both forward and backwards
Right.
with that as well. So that actually counts as 3 as opposed to 2.
Yeah, so I think reverse lunges are more like glute and hamstring
sure.
versus, but like forward lunges, split squats, or lateral lunges, I think are all of those ones do justice for the inner thighs
Most
as well.
definitely.
Cool.
Good call.
So we're at 5.
Number 5. That was
Nope,
5.
that was
Or-
5.
That was
We're
5?
at 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
The next one that I think of, and it's actually one of my favorites as well. This is also considered variations, and it's just not one exercise, and that would be your plank jacks. And actually, it would be, let me explain. Plank jacks, again, for those of you that maybe don't really grasp the understanding, you're making sure you're on your hands, and maybe for a novice member, you could be on your forearms for higher intensity, but you're going to proceed to step your feet out simultaneously and back in, right? I know that we did that, was it this past week? And you were complaining how
Yeah,
much
that was on Thursday.
Okay. So you have that, but you also have your mountain climber, which also does kind of the same thing, but it does target those inner thighs. And then you also have plank jacks, mountain climbers, and...
Which was 6 and 7.
Okay. Sorry, should I stop?
You're just kind of naming them all.
No, but it's kind of the same thing though when you think about it, because you're in the, as far as your starting position.
Yeah.
You know, it's just the movement in which direction you're going. Instead of having your feet go in and out, you're gonna have your feet go up and down. So, yeah, that would be my
6 and 7.
yes, my 6 and 7.
Okay. Okay, so my number 8 is a standing cardio exercise, which we do pretty often at the studio, is the seal jack.
Nice.
So the seal jack, when you're forcing your legs to, I think this is adduction and abduction,
Yep.
right? Okay, so when you're coming inward, you're targeting those inner thighs because you're squeezing. It's just like that. I was just telling you about this earlier. The stupid thing that my mom used to have with the put the thigh
As seen
master
on
thing,
TV.
and you like squeeze your legs, right? So because when you're squeezing your legs together or crossing them together, you're automatically targeting those inner thighs. So seal jacks are a great, fantastic, upgraded version of the thigh master.
What's really cool is that it serves more than one purpose, because not only are you getting your strength training in, but you're also getting your cardio in.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Was that 8?
Cool. That was 8.
All right, so my number 9, again, is like, this would be 9 and 10 actually, because there's multiple variations to
Okay.
it, but this would be more of a plyometric style, and that would be your jump squats.
Yes.
Which is really cool. Jump squats and or box jumps as well. So for jump squats, just like it sounds, you're squatting low. I always say, I tell the ladies, ass to the grass, making sure you get nice and low, squat low, exploding high. And I really feel as though the higher you explode, the more emphasis that you are actually putting on those inner thighs.
Yes, absolutely. I think the biggest thing to just kind of reiterate when it comes to targeting specific body areas is that you can't spot reduce fat. So if you're trying to like slim your inner thighs, you're not going to do it by just putting the thigh master between your legs and doing this, or laying down and doing these stupid like side leg raises or whatever those things are. But like, I mean, at the end of the day, you have to get cardio and strength training in, because if you want to burn fat, that's how you do it. Yeah. You clean up your nutrition, you do some cardio, you do some strength training all together, you burn the fat, you build a lean muscle. And usually, if you do all of those things correctly for a long enough period of time, the results start to come. So there is really no one size fits all when it comes to just targeting inner thighs. But if you're looking for exercises or maybe a reassurance that some of the exercises that you are currently doing are targeting inner thighs, those would be the ones.
Sure. I'm sitting here thinking, I just want to share a little personal story. For those of you that don't know my background, and I'm really not here to talk about myself, but I think it's kind of relatable to the audience that's tuning in, is that before I actually really pursued the professional sport that I was in, I traveled a lot, and a lot of people don't know that, where I traveled all across the world for 5 years, 49 out of 50 states and 7 countries. That's a whole nother story. But during that time, it was really hard to be on a set schedule with working out and eating clean when you're always traveling and on the road. And during that time, I have to keep it real, like my thighs were connecting. They were rubbing together. And I remember that, and it made me feel some type of way. In a way, even though no one else really saw it, but I was really insecure about it because I didn't like it. And sometimes it caused rash burn, especially when you're sweaty and you're working and you're standing and running. But long story short, when I did get my shit together and I got back on track, I ended up, again, I stuck to the fundamentals. And needless to say, I don't have that problem anymore. But when I think back to when I did, the only thing, like you said, that I did, Brittany, I cleaned up my nutrition. I started working out. And I didn't do these crazy ass exercises. It was just doing the fundamentals. And the fundamentals will, hands down, that's like your number one. Having your thighs touch together is not a bad thing, by the way, because mine still touch together, and I work out every single day. So that's not always a bad thing. No. But to your point of nutrition and diet always makes a difference. It does. But that also doesn't mean that you're gonna have the thigh gap, so to say. No, but you can perhaps reduce the thigh gap, I would say. Well, I understand that, yeah. I get that. Okay. But I think to the point of nutrition does matter at the end of the day. At the end of the day, it boils down to that stuff does matter, and you can work out every single day of your life. And here's the thing also to remember is that as long as you're comfortable in your own skin and the way that you feel, and if you're out to, work out and do those things to get healthy and find a better version of yourself, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to lose the weight. But if you do have those goals, like if you really do have those legitimate goals to tone your legs or whatever the case may be, then you're going to have to take the steps necessary to do that. Most definitely. I agree with you. Cool. All right. Anything else? No, I think we hit just about. Did we hit the nail on the head? I think we really did. I think this is going to be a good one for those that are tuning in. So with that being said, we thank you guys. Again, we are on our second year of the Coffee with MP show. Yes. And our subscriber list is growing every single day. So we would really, really like to thank you guys for tuning in. And if you really like the episode, again, make sure to leave us a review on your favorite platform, if that's Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. And yes. Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next. Take care, guys. Bye. Bye.
Thanks for joining us today. If you like this episode, subscribe to our YouTube channel or find our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or whatever your favorite place is to listen to podcasts. And if you really liked this episode, please leave a review for us on iTunes. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.